Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Lindsey series. This is the biggest district in Lincolnshire, containing 188 civil parishes. Without further ado, here's today's offering. Welcome back to East Lindsey again, folks. The hat is off. The sun is out. It must be getting warmer here. Yes, spring is just around the corner. I've got a lovely village for you today. Now, last week in the Langton by Wragby episode, you may remember that I mentioned I'm not going to be hearing a lot of traffic noise in this run of East Lindsey parishes. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be hearing industrial noise though. Take a look at this, if you can see beyond this very large hedge. Behind there, there's something very industrially important to this place and to the surrounding area. It's a compressor station, and you'll find it in the parish of Hatton. The East Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Hatton, Heath Farmstead. Alright, so this week in East Lindsey, we're hitting one of the smallest ones so far in this large eastern slab of Lincolnshire loveliness. Welcome to Hatton, a village with not much more than just one road, a collection of houses, a church, an old schoolhouse and schoolroom, and a closed pub on the A158. It lies just to the north and east of that road on a shallow hill, right on the edge of the Lincolnshire Wolds. Although not famed for much, industrially Hatton has one of the most important landmarks pertaining to the supply and distribution of natural gas. I'm talking about Hatton Compressor Station, one of 26 such structures that regulate the flow of the commodity around the country as part of the National Transmission System, or NTS for short. In recent years, the handful of people who live in these parts have had to band together with those from two other villages to stop a second industrial site from ruining the local farmland, the proposed and now ill-fated Hatton Solar Farm. We'll discuss both of these in this episode, but we'll also take in the lovely scenery, the peace and tranquility, and the rural aura that we've come to expect from East Lindsey. The place also has a deserted medieval settlement, but it's impossible for me to show you that. Let's get going and discover why. We start this very short episode with a drive into Hatton from the A158, where there's a couple of properties and a garage which belong to the parish. At one time there was also a public house on the A158 called the New Midge, right on the parish boundary with Minting. That is now permanently closed, but was last open as recently as 2021. This road is the one that leads to the main Hatton village. Look to your right here and you might be able to see a big landmark through the hedgerows. That landmark, larger than the village itself, is the Hatton Compressor Station. Driven by 3 gas turbines, it's one of 26 such installations found nationwide, which are part of the National Transmission System. In layman's terms, the NTS is a network of pipelines that supply gas to around 40 power stations and large industrial users from gas terminals on the coast. The NTS also supplies gas distribution companies, which then feed commercial and domestic users. I would have liked to have seen this place a bit better, but the high hedgerow had other ideas. It's in there somewhere, folks, I promise. Aren't high hedgerows an absolute nuisance? When I did the route plan for this particular episode, I found a little gap in this hedge, but that gap seems to have now been filled in with something. There's no gaps at all now along this road. I was banking on being able to stand at that gap and just film a couple of shots of the compressor station from there, but apparently that's not the case anymore. Never mind, doesn't matter, at least you get the idea. Hatton Compressor Station is behind this hedgerow here. Occupies quite a lot of land to the south of the village. And speaking of the village, if we carry on up this road, you can just about see civilization over there. There is Hatton. This is not the biggest village in the world, I'll tell you that for free. It is probably going to take me no more than about 10 minutes to walk around it. That's how small it is. So let's head up there and see what the village has to offer. Hatton is as linear as a linear village can be. Aside from the few houses on the A158 and another road which we'll catch at the end, it's a single dead straight lane. Houses are few and relatively far between. First up is the 1873 built old schoolhouse on the right hand side. Over the road is the school room, which too dates from the 1870s. This became the village hall for a time, but now it's a holiday let. As a testament to its age, the front of this delightful cottage retains its original Victorian postbox, which is still in use. Isn't it just the most wonderful property? On a fence nearby is a banner that reads "No solar on farmland." This refers to a legal struggle which the residents of Hatton, Great Sturton and Sotby have had in recent years over the proposed Hatton Solar Farm. The application, submitted by Push Energy in 2022, planned to install a 49.9 megawatt solar farm and a substation between the 3 villages. The objection to it ran along the lines that the huge industrial site was to be placed on high-grade agricultural land, which makes an active contribution to food security and crop production. Earlier this year, the residents won their case. Now we've started to descend a shallow hill and the houses start to become a little harder to see, as most of them are set back from the road. This one here with the big tree looming large over its entrance drive is the rectory, but you do well to see the building itself. Just after that is a little lane on the left, which is the only turn we'll make on this route. This is Church Walk, which leads to 3 further houses and the Church of St Stephen. Hatton's Church, a real hidden gem, is a Grade 2 listed building. In fact, it's the only listed building in the entire parish. Originally dating from the 13th century, St Stephen's was rebuilt in 1870 by James Fowler of Louth using a bright red brick which came from a local brickworks. The original church would have been made of limestone because the bandings that line the walls here were reused in the rebuild. St Stephen's most striking feature is its beautiful rounded apse with stained glass windows at the eastern end. The west window contains some 13th century glass fragments. Other features include medieval masonry in the organ arch, a 10th century drum font, and a 19th century candelabra. Wonderful. Behind the church is Hatton Hall, another fine example of a 19th century farmstead which has been scaled down somewhat over the last 150 years or so. As far as I know, nobody of any great note has ever lived at Hatton Hall, but it remains the grandest of the properties in the village. As we leave it behind, the road starts to gently dip downhill. The house on the right is a former cobbler's cottage, one of the trades which Hatton once possessed many moons ago. There's a handful of other exquisite residences on either side after that, but effectively you're now out of civilization. Well, that's got to be a record. That's the first time I think I've ever done a village and not seen anybody. So quiet, so peaceful, not a single soul has walked past me or driven past me. I've had the whole village to myself. And the end point is this stream right here, which cuts across Hatton, which is where I parked. It looks a bit mucky, but yeah, it's another feature, I suppose, of the village. Once beyond this little bridge, there's just basically one house over there, and that's it. Hatton is complete, done, finished. Time to move on to the next one here in East Lindsey. To finish with, we have a drive due east across that rich arable land that the locals out here were so keen to save from the solar farm. With just a handful more houses, including an old barn that's been turned into a holiday cottage, this marks the end as far as Hatton goes. Elsewhere within the boundaries, and worth a mention here, is Hatton Wood, which is a site of special scientific interest. That lies 1 mile to the southwest of the village and forms part of the Bardney Limewoods National Nature Reserve. Hatton Meadows, a nature reserve belonging to the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust, lies just to the north of Hatton Wood. And if we're talking about features that aren't easily accessible, try this one for size. Hatton also contains a deserted medieval village. It was called Shankston, but it's physically impossible to show you where it was. The remains are now buried under the A158, and the fields alongside it have been turned into active farmland. That's really it for this one, folks. Not the largest in the world by any means, but still interesting enough to be worthy of a decent length video. Believe it or not, next week we'll be in a place that's even smaller than this. I wonder what it would be like to live in an extreme rural place like this. See you soon. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.